Hi and welcome back to the Fractured Rooster Garage. My name is Josh and today we're finishing up the Bronco quarter panel install. As you can see, we've got it pre-hung. We did that in the last episode. It's a complete overlay quarter panel. In addition to hanging the quarter panel on the passenger side, on the driver's side, we needed some minor inner structure repair, and we've got another patch panel to put on here. And then we're going to send the Bronco off for paint. Something I've never gotten to do before. I've never got to paint a project. I've never gotten one that far along, or it was never my project or my responsibility, or I just started enjoying it, and before you knew it, I overlooked the paint and just had fun with it. So this will be the first car in my life I've ever gotten to paint. By I mean not me personally. I'm going to send it over to my friend Ryan at Midwest Garage. He's got a new paint booth now. They're assembling like this week, and hopefully in the next month or two it'd be ready to be used. And hopefully this is one of the first cars he gets to push through there. Having said that, we've got to stick those quarter panels on somehow, and they're held on by like a million tack welds or spot welds from the factory. So I went to Harbor Freight and bought our own spot welder. This seems much easier than drilling a bunch of holes on the perimeter of those quarter panels and then filling those holes in with welds. I think they're called rosette welds. With this, at least the factory ones, have just a slight little indentation where the two pieces of metal shrunk as they welded together. And the factory just paints right over them. You'll see them, little dimples all around your panels where two panels join together. And the factory doesn't even touch those. They just paint right over the top of them. So Harbor Freight sells these in two different flavors, a 120 volt and a 220 volt. And I picked up the 120 because I wanted to be able to just plug it into any outlet in the shop. I was also afraid, working on thin stuff, that the 220 might blow right through it. I'm not even going to open those instructions because who the heck does that? This is probably the most straightforward tool I've ever bought, aside from a screwdriver. I'll demonstrate this in a second, but just to illustrate, this inner fender needs to, weld to this outer fender, and to do that, you'll pinch this together with some vice grips or some clamps, get it exactly where you want it, and you'll use that pinch right here, hit the trigger. 1 second later, bingo bango, you have a panel glued together. My body guy Ryan said you need to go clean metal to clean metal. I asked about the back sides of these panels. Obviously the fronts have this nice primer on them. It's epoxy primer, but the back side is also primed, and I thought, is that a weld through primer? Is that something I can just weld, two pieces of metal while they're primed? And he said, absolutely not. You want to clean those up to bare metal. And I said, well, what happens to the bare metal after you weld it together? Isn't that going to rust like instantly? And he said, well, yeah, of course, you've got to go in there with some cavity wax. Okay, so I looked the cavity wax up, and sure enough, it's just like it sounds. It's like a seam sealer, but it's in an aerosol can, and you jam it down inside those cavities, and you just blast it full of this cavity wax. And the best I can figure is that cavity wax always stays pliable and soft, and never fully cures and becomes hard and brittle. Not quite sure, but I've got some coming. It'll be here in a couple of days. But Ryan assured me I can go ahead and tack all this up today and then come back in and cavity wax, when I get that stuff in a couple days. And then ship the whole mess off to him, and it'd become his problem. So, sorry Ryan, but thanks for your help. We'll tack weld all along the perimeter of this panel. So we may have to drill some holes along here, but that's fine because it's a nice easy surface to clean up. See, there's some spot welds from the factory. There's one there and one there. When they build these trucks, they have these giant robots with jigs and clamps, and each one of these is probably a clamp point, to make sure all the panels are assembled and lined up perfectly. And then as soon as they are, they probably just tack them all at the same time. That would actually be a really cool process to watch. But the shade tree in garage body repair method is going to be the Harbor Freight spot weld clamp. And I'll just quit talking about it and we'll start doing about it. new respect for body guys. I suppose we're there. Let me grab a couple of sheets of thin metal and I'll practice some tack welds and then we'll just do it. I don't know. We got this set up on a piece of plywood, something nice and flammable. That's probably smart. So clamp and trigger. That was about 3 seconds of trigger time. Whoa, look at that. Very cool little spot weld. Wow, let me bring you in closer so you can watch that. Okay, good solid pinch, and I'm on trigger for about 3 seconds. And go. 1, 2, 3. Should probably let go a little quicker. Hey, look at that. Spotted. 1, 2, 3. That's better. A lot less copper transfer. I think that spark was, I wasn't pitching it quite hard enough, so the arc was kind of jumping back and forth. Nice. Well, I'd say she works. All right, well, my gut is telling me to start with the most important welds, and that would be these. We'll start here, throw 3 or 4 tacks along here, just to keep it all from warping and twisting. Same over here, and at that point, we can pretty much take all of our clamps off and let it hang on its own. Then we'll come back and we'll tack our important areas. Actually, we'll probably tack all of our rosettes, just so the panel doesn't move at all. And then we'll come back and pinch weld everything. Whew. This is stressful. Tackosaurus. We do a couple of quick tacks just to hold things in alignment. Now I'll just pinch and contort everything so that the lines, you know, the seams are as close as I can get it. And I'll start wrapping this up. All right, well, it's coming along fairly well. What I do know of welding is you don't obviously want to put a lot of heat in one spot. So as you can see, I've made a couple of tacks and I'm just filling in those tacks with a bunch of smaller tacks and just keeping it moving. That's what a rosette looked like. There's another one, and here's a large gap I'm trying to fill, probably a 1/16 of an inch wide. And again, don't take this as a how-to, but my tactic there is to just back the gun off a little bit to give the wire a little bit of wiggle room, and I'm just trying to shoot the gap, and the arc is just trying to match the amount of arc hitting both sides, and then releasing the heat but letting the gas flow to cool that bead as soon as I can get it to form, you know, bridging those two panels. And it seems to be working well. I don't know if it's going to be the strongest weld, but hey, it was that or splice in a little panel, and I think 2 welds that close to each other just had the probability to warp and be a nightmare to Bondo over later and smooth out and make disappear. So we're doing what we got to do. Here's all those rosettes in the door panel. Some of those look better than others. That's probably the best looking one. Not a whole lot to grind flush on that one. Looks like I missed one there. So as soon as I get this top half all done, I'll come down here to the bottom and you know, clamp it all in place and start using the spot welder. Actually, I'll probably run some spots up here just to get a feel for the machine, and then I'll move on to the bottom. But just wanted to jump in here and show you what I'm doing. All these little sparks and flashes that you're seeing in the time lapse, that's what they look like. So, back at it. Alright, and here's what all that mess looks like when it's all done. Next step is to get a new flap wheel out and slowly work those down, I think. And what you don't want to do is come in here and sit in one spot and just work across that slowly, because you're going to put so much heat in there and you're putting pressure on it, which is going to push that panel in. So just a bunch of small and quick and slow passes across there, almost using a flap wheel like a file. That's the next step. Cue the next time lapse. Okay, well, oh God, this thing, I should have mentioned this spot welder weighs about 12 or maybe 15 pounds. All right, time for our first official tack weld. And 3, 2, 1. All right, seems to have held. Never doubted it. That's what I meant to say. Okay, a couple more of these. All right, well, just like that, I'll continue working my way around, and yeah, we'll see you guys when this is all done. It looks like we've done it. This is my first quarter panel replacement, and as you can see, those welds are, I mean, I wouldn't call those mint, but they're minty, they're mint-like. Nice and level. Throw a little bit of filler in there, and those should disappear. Our rosettes, top those off. It's the same thing with those. I think we'll just paint over those. I think those are fine. I don't think those need addressed at all. So it didn't seem like that much work. However, I do know that it was a significant amount of work. And all we have left today is this small little patch panel, which should be cake after the other side. But without further ado, let's clean this metal up and get that little quarter panel attached. cooled back down to the touch. I know that looks terrible, but I promise you it'll come out looking just like the other side. This is the way the other side started. I think our last step for today is to wipe down all of our bare metal, and then we'll hit it with some self-etching primer. The self-etching will bite into that bare metal, because it might be a month, maybe 2, God forbid, you know, maybe it's a little longer before this ink can see some paint. So I think it's as good as a brand new quarter panel could be at this point, and I'm super happy with how everything came out. It looks pretty OEM, if I have to say so myself. I wasn't exactly happy with overlaying this fender over the old one, so I came back in and made a relief cut, pushed it in a little bit just to get the reveal to be the same throughout. And we also widened up that door gap quite a bit. It's still a little tight right there, but I think we'll be fine. You know, it'll be one of those if you squint, it's mint situations. But at this point, all the welds are done. All the grinding is pretty well done. And all the exposed metal's been covered with self-etching epoxy primer. Ziki, what are you doing? Oh, we had a little cat fight in the driveway this morning. I had to scare off the opponent, so he's on high alert. I was waiting on I think officially where we left off, I was waiting on this cavity wax and seam sealer to show up. I don't have the gun to apply the seam sealer, so Ryan from Blue Collar Collision is on his way over right now, and when he gets here, we're going to button up this whole quarter panel and make it watertight. He's going to throw the glass back in, and I'll officially be able to park this outside once again, which will open up this shop to, you know, getting all my other projects caught up. We got to move these cars. We got to make room. Because like I've alluded to, there's 4 or 5 new projects that came from my father's garage, and a couple of them are very, very cool. All right, well, Ryan made it over and he jumped right to work. I picked up the old window and brought it out here, and he's scraping off the old gasket. And what is this stuff called? Butyl?
Yep. No, this is actually urethane here.
Oh, urethane?
Yep.
He was commenting on how reflective the back of this glass is, and I have to agree.
Mirror finish.
Makes my head look funny. It's like a funhouse mirror. All right, so we'll scrape all this off, and then we'll do some surface prep on the truck itself. Just scraping off the old stuff, and then like a primer, and then just glue it together.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Prime it all up and throw her in.
How did I guess that correctly? It's like I've seen this done before.
A couple times.
Well, Ryan's gone, and you know, I never doubted his work. He makes you look easy. I asked Ryan about the cavity wax. He said it's pretty self-explanatory. It comes with a lot of hoses, like a 12-inch, 30-inch, and a 48-inch hose or something. Said just like you think, you attach it to the bottle and you jam it in a cavity and you pull the trigger and you back the hose out as you're pushing down on the button. So this will let us get down deep inside the crevice here and apply liberally as directed. Ryan said this stuff goes absolutely everywhere, so that's probably why he left before I started. So he knew what's about to happen. Yep, he wasn't kidding. Ooh, it's like snot. Gross. Well, that made an adequate mess. And I learned that the nozzles of these things are pretty cool in that they spray in like a 360 radius. Check this out. That's pretty cool. So you can literally jam it inside of a frame rail or down inside of a door cavity, and it sprays out in all directions, ensuring you got good coverage everywhere. So that's that. I ran a bead down inside the good quarter panel just because it's got lots of good rust inhibitors. I was reading all about it, so we did that. Plus we jammed it down inside the old cavity here. That's probably way too much, but hey, we live in excess here at the Fractured Rooster. We jammed it all down inside the front here. We've got good nasty coverage everywhere. Looks like somebody blew their nose all over the inside of that quarter panel, so I think that's exactly what you want. Now we can move on to putting in the carpet. So I know I've mentioned this tip before when I was putting carpet in the Ranger, but I thought it's worth mentioning again. After you put the carpet down, you lose the layout of the land. You don't know where your holes went for your seat mounts or anything. Everything disappears on you. So what I like to do is take the fasteners, put them back in without the fastenee attached, and that way when I lay the carpet down I can run my hand over it, and all these bolt heads I know to cut an X to pop a bolt through. Carpet's in, looks, well, it will look great once we get some weight on it and park it in the sun, get it hot in here, time or two, and let it all settle down. Next, before we put the side panels on, we've got to put this carpet in the back in this cargo area. And when I removed the carpet back here, I noticed that Ford had included these, I don't know, leveling strips of like cardboard. And naturally they're all rotten and they kind of stink and they're gross. So I'm going to go upstairs, get some MDF and make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. That way the cargo area is nice and level and it's not, you know, wavy. And the hours are starting to catch up with me. I had to take a break, put some shorts on, and heat up some 5-day-old pizza. Now I'm feeling a lot better. I'm just throwing some more of this panel bond down here, some contact adhesive just to keep these things from sliding around. Which way does this go in? Gonna have to guess this direction. Just like that. Now I think we can officially start throwing in our quarter trim. It's on the roof. Well, well, well. Apparently the trim goes in first. Who would have guessed? I don't know what I'm doing. Who would have guessed? I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Oh, that me. I would have guessed that. Bam, just like that. A side panel is installed. One down, one to go. And 400 more screws to go, but well, it seems I grossly underestimated the amount of time it was going to take to put this interior back together. It all came apart so quick that I I guess I envisioned it all going back together in the same 30 minutes. But we're going on day 2 of the installation. It's so tedious because I don't want to scratch anything or crack any of the plastic. And in fact, I went to Ace Hardware here locally and bought a bunch of black interior screws, not the porous coated, what is it, like a phosphorus coating. These are nice painted screw heads. So I'm replacing all of those as all this interior goes back together. But it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. But we're almost there. I took the seats with me yesterday. I got to looking at how nasty they were sitting in the shop. I took them over to my friend's house who's got a carpet extractor, a nice commercial one, the heated one, and sucked a bunch of, looked like chocolate milk. We sucked the chocolate milk out of these seats and brought them back quite a bit actually. It's unfortunate the sides you can see are kind of an orangey color, but then the faces are this tan doe skin, sun faded color. But the problem we're going to run into is this front seat, the driver's seat. As you can imagine, is absolutely wasted. The foam is worn through. There's metal poking out of it. I've got a very talented upholstery guy who I'm positive could rebuild this foam, even deconstruct this seat, use these pieces as patterns and stitch in a fresh piece of fabric. So maybe I'll just drop the front seats off and have him replace the outer edges with something that matches closely to these rears. That's probably the route we're going to go. Leave the center insets in place. It's kind of a denim, like a tough, and then just replace the soft outers with something on the front seats. I think we might be able to leave these rears. I don't know. I'll let him make that decision, but I'm really trying to avoid buying or building all new seat covers because you're talking $1,000 minimum. My upholstery guy is very talented, but he's also very busy because of that. So he's got to price his work a little higher, or he'll be taking in all kinds of jobs that will pay nickels and dimes when he could be making tens of hundreds of dollars, probably per hour. So we got to make it worth his time, and I get that. I have no problems paying for good work. We just got to see if it's worth his time. If it's not worth his time, we'll probably just leave it the way it is, because I'd rather it look this way and original than look even worse by paying some other hack to try to put something together. But yeah, we're going to keep rolling. The seats are going to go in next. Well, probably the center console. Probably work from the center out. That way we're not climbing over the seats to mount that guy. Well, looky here. We got seats and they function. As you can see, I spent a little extra time on this one with the extractor. That's what they used to look like. That's why I was so excited to use that. So I have to take this seat out and go back to the drawing board or something there, but you know what, I can look over that. For now, we have functioning seats. They're not exactly the same color of brown. Our carpet matches the upholstery, not the backing. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Maybe that's dyeable, maybe that's not, who knows. But hey, we're one step closer to getting this thing back on the road. It's really what's most important. I spent a little bit of time here cleaning up some of these edges. They overmold a lot of this carpet, so I took and trimmed some of that back so that it fits and tucks nicely here in the corner. Just follow the radius around here. That way it's not, bulging and bunching up. And that's a perfect example of why it takes so much more time to put the interior back together. Taking this back panel out probably took me, maybe 5 minutes. Putting it back in is probably going to take half an hour to an hour. Well, the seats are in. Can't see it yet. I'll save that surprise for later. But I went to install this metal trim that holds the carpet down. These are just some sill plates. And as you can see, they're pretty bent up and kind of hammered. But I thought before I try to find some replacements, I thought maybe we could just hammer this back straight, or at least straight enough, and then hit it with some Scotch-Brite to clean it up. I don't know, can't hurt because they're pretty hammered. Now, I've just grabbed some cut-off wood pieces from upstairs at the wood shop. Now, here's the worst dent. Pretty hammered. I have some little wood pieces that are about the same width. I think I'll just hammer it in there, see what happens. All right, now this is probably where some of us are going to have differences of opinions, which is fine. Instead of putting those pan head screws back in here, I myself like to use a self-tapper with a washer underneath it. Those Phillips head screws always get full of junk and mud and rust, and they're a nightmare to get out. You know what I'm talking about. So I prefer to use a hex head self-tapper because it's so much easier. And I'm shooting them into the existing holes. There's finished product. I don't mind the bolt head. I actually prefer it over the Phillips. It's coming along pretty good. I'm holding off on the door panels because I want to replace the glass. It's very scratched up. And like I mentioned before, we're going to put new glass in this while we're getting it painted. But it smells brand new in here. The door's even shut nice and tight. Nice. It smells great, it looks great. It's on the charger because the battery was dead. We're having the doors left open for a month. Let's see if it wants to come to life. Never doubted it. Oh, we're officially mobile again for the first time in a couple months. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the results. I'm gonna head down the road and spray it down at the car wash real quick. Well, I suppose that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching, and I don't know, am I an idiot for spending this much money on a $500 Bronco? I don't think so. I don't think so. We're getting lots of smiles out of it, so that's all that matters. See you guys next time. And don't give up on your $500 trucks. There's still plenty of life left in them, I promise. It takes a little bit of work, but it's there.